2023 will see Disney's hit animated series, The Owl House, come to a close after a run of 2 full-length seasons and 3 specials. And many fans are dying to know what the conclusion to this story will look like. But what if I told you we already know how The Owl House will end? Not necessarily the final episode beat by beat, but the actual resolution and epilogue that the 3rd special is sure to have. And it's all thanks to another show, Amphibia. Okay. The first thing I want to do is make sure this doesn't come out the wrong way. There's undeniably been a lot of parallels between Amphibia and The Owl House, from their premise to pivotal moments in the story. It's common for the 2 shows to reach the same plot points, but go in the opposite direction when it comes to execution. Fans have always regarded them as sister shows, Disney's take on the isekai formula. They were announced together, aired on both of their episodes together, and the creators of both shows, Dana and Matt, are very public that they're homies who support each other. That being said, I don't want to give out the implication that The Owl House is copying Amphibia, or that Dana and Matt even plan to have major story beats mirror each other. It's probably frustrating for Dana to have her show air these major plot points a year after Amphibia airs theirs. I just think these 2 visionaries and their team share similar taste and have a mutual interest in deconstructing similar tropes. This is all a long-winded way of saying, I don't want to annoy Dana. Please spare me. Also, spoilers ahead for Amphibia, since I know a portion of Owl House fans haven't watched the show. A problem you should fix if you haven't. So to recap, how do The Owl House and Amphibia mirror one another? We all know they have a similar setup, with Luce and Anne both ending up in new worlds that serve as a vehicle for growth as they form meaningful relationships and found families, adapting to these new environments to the best of their ability as normal human beings. And when it comes to the 1st season, the similarities are pretty broad, as they take different directions and end up in different places. The biggest thing both have in common is that Season 1 of Amphibia is confined to Wartwood, and Season 1 of The Owl House is confined to Bonesboro. You can also argue that Luce being guided through glyph magic by the Titan is similar to the implied uses of Anne's Calamity Box powers, Luce lacking magic within her, while Anne is unknowingly imbued with godlike abilities. It's Season 2 where the parallels really begin to add up though. Both seasons see Luce and Anne share a common goal: return to their homes back on Earth.
I can't believe it. You mean this could actually be my ticket home?
I'm gonna study all I can and find a way back to you.
Luce wants to achieve this by creating a working portal, while Anne needs to get to Newtopia and later recharge all 3 stones on the Calamity Box. Both seasons see the characters explore their respective worlds further, filled with a ton of new locations. Amphibia Season 2 sees the introduction of Marcy Wu, while The Owl House Season 2 introduces Hunter. And while their arcs are pretty different from one another, they both are a huge example of how these 2 shows hit similar beats through different executions. With Amphibia, Marcy is unknowingly a pawn for King Andrias, while Hunter is actively trying to impress his uncle, Emperor Belos. Obviously, Belos keeps Hunter in the dark when it comes to a lot of information. But it doesn't change the fact that Hunter, unlike Marcy, still maintains a level of self-awareness even if he's in denial of what his uncle's endgame actually is. Season 2 of both shows also sees the main character assist the big bad in different ways. Anne, alongside literally every character, trusts King Andrias and has no reason to suspect that recharging the gems is actually setting the stage for a multi-dimensional invasion.
Hate to break it to you, kiddo, but you've been duped.
Luce, on the other hand, actively opposes Belos throughout the 2nd season, yet inadvertently helps him find the Collector when traveling back to the past, unaware of who Philip Woodbine actually is. And of course, there's the Season 2 finale of both of these shows, where a lot of fans really started to notice the similarities. Both conclude with the situations at hand going from bad to worse, but before the main character can really do anything, they're booted out of their respective isekai worlds and return to Earth.
Oh my frog!
What is this place?
Home.
Hey, Mom. I'm back.
Amphibia is left in a state of limbo as Andrias goes mask off and turns against the entire nation, while the Boiling Isles has to deal with the Collector rising up to power immediately after the draining spell, transforming the skull of the Titan into an owl house. whatever that means. The inversion here is that while Anne was separated from her friends, but stranded with her found family, Luce is separated from her found family, but stranded with her friends. Both the Planters and the Hexide gang are shown to grow an affinity towards Earth and human civilization. And you can even argue there's parallels between Marcy being possessed by the Core, transforming into Darcy, and Hunter having his body jacked by the essence of Bellows. Although those confrontations happen in completely different parts of the story. But even the end of Thanks to Them calls to mind how Escape to Amphibia ended, with both parties managing to return to these fantasy worlds through unexpected portals. Although, Escape to Amphibia actually gave us a glimpse into the horrid state of Amphibia that it fell into over the months Anne and the Planters were gone. We know from the end of King's Tide that Luz and company are going to return to a version of the Boiling Isles that's very different from what they remember. Also, Camila is going to be a part of the final battle, much like how the Boon Choice were fighting against the invasion on Earth. I think I've made my case pretty clear. So let's move into the nitty-gritty. How will the Owl House end after the final battle? What will the status quo look like, and where will these characters end up? Amphibia had one of the most emotionally charged endings I've ever seen in a cartoon, as they decided not to hold back and not cheap out for the sake of a happy ending. It's a bittersweet one, as Anne, Sasha, and Marcy successfully return to Earth at the expense of the Calamity Box and its stones crumbling to pieces, completely severing the link between these two worlds. However, as I said in previous videos, I think the Owl House will pretty much have the exact opposite ending. Portals in the Owl House aren't powered by mystical stones, but by Titan's blood, a species that all went extinct, save for King Clawthorn, who the show has reiterated over and over again is a child. Meaning, as long as there's the S&P department, the boy has plot armor. So as I've stated in other theories, we can assure ourselves that there will always be a source of Titan's blood at the end of the series. I think it'd be cool for King to create portals with his screams, similar to his sonic waves. But it's possible that King could always just donate a tiny bit of his blood every so often to power portals. We saw in Thanks to Them that you really don't need a ton of blood to create a natural portal, and the supply in the portal door's key managed to last hundreds of years between Philip creating it, Ida finding it, and Luce blowing it up. There was even enough left after Amity and Hunter's brawl over it that saw the key get cracked. All of that being said, I think we're going to get an ending that's more or less Star Versus but better, where instead of the worlds merging and we roll credits, we'll instead have a time skip where, thanks to portal travel, it's established that humans and witches can freely interact with each other. Witches living on Earth and humans potentially living in the demon realm, practicing magic. I already did a whole video on why I think Hunter and V are going to stay on Earth when this is all said and done, but something in Thanks to Them kind of tipped me off that the gates will open for all witches. During Masha's reciting of the Brothers Widobane, they make it clear that Graysfield looks back at its witch hunting history with great shame. It got me thinking that if the existence of witches was blown wide open, which I think it will be, while it would be a shock for a lot of people, they would become accepting of it pretty quickly. I mean, just look at Luce and Camila. I'm sure there are plenty of witches who may feel more at home on Earth like Hunter, and I'm sure there are humans who could feel a stronger sense of belonging in the demon realm like Luce, who already paved the way for humans to coexist on the Isles by rediscovering glyph magic, becoming a notable student at Hexide by convincing Bump to introduce a multi-track curriculum, despite the fact she can't even perform spells, and she's about to save their entire world. As for Luce herself and where she'll end up, I'm pretty sure she'll just go back and forth between Earth and the demon realm, living with her mom during the school year, visiting the Isles on the weekend, and staying at the Owl House during the summer. Now let's talk about where the villains will end up. By the end of Amphibia, the core was destroyed, while Andreas had a change of heart, willing to live the rest of his life as a prisoner who's helping restore the land, alongside his henchman, the Triple B. While this was a pretty good way to handle these characters, granted the core was an entity more than a person, I do think the Owl House is setting the stage to be a bit more brutal. First off, Bellows has to die. Not even just because Andreas lived, but because he's a dick. Bellows actually has a solid kill count that isn't just robots. And he tried to commit mass genocide not just once, but twice if you want to factor in the remaining specials. He's absolutely irredeemable and he knows it. When it comes to Disney TVA villains, he's the lowest of the low. The only characters who can come close to him are the other genocidal maniacs, Toffee and Bill Cipher, and they both had insane deaths. So, Belly, pick out your coffin. If for some reason S&P pushes back against Bellows having Karma blast him in the face and he has to survive, which would be lame, then he might just get sealed in the in-between realm with one of those tablets that trap the Collector. We saw in Edge of the World that even when broken, these tablets can still function if the pieces are brought together, which may still have some plot relevance. Speaking of the Collector, given how the narrative is approaching him as a misguided child, I honestly would feel bad if they're the one who gets sealed away, returning to the in-between realm. I'm 100% expecting a redemption arc with the Collector, with them having a push in the right direction and forming genuine friendships with the squad, learning to use those celestial powers for good and not chaotic evil. And then there's Odalia. I don't think the show's done with her quite yet. I think she's gonna be up to some shit in the second special. But even if she doesn't, she knew about the draining spell and more or less conspired with Belos, continuing to supply him with Obamatons. So I think either way, she has sealed her fate, and that fate is simply being imprisoned. Maybe she'll get sent to the Conformatorium, though I can't imagine that existing in its current state after Belos is gone. But either way, the Isles has Alador as their genius inventor, so you don't need to keep the other one. Odalia's washed. Get her out of here and dye her hair against her will. Stupid asshole. Next, I want to touch on what the Boiling Isles and kind of the Demon Realm as a whole will look like at the end of the series. Assuming we'll get a time jump, similar to Amphibia, there's no way they won't touch on what the status quo is looking like. In the first half of Amphibia's epilogue, we get a look into how Amphibia is doing 9 months after Andreas has been dethroned. Not only has its environment recovered from industrialization, but it's also no longer a monarch that has frogs, newts, and toads largely divided. Instead, it's been reformed with a new government that has frog, newt, and toad ambassadors. It's honestly pretty vague in the show itself due to time, but I think this is where the Owl House has the opportunity to shine that other story-driven cartoons didn't. It has the most fleshed out politics of any of these shows. Between the Coven system, sigils, the Conformatorium, petrification, and so much more, there's a lot of oppression that needs to be removed from the Isles. I can see the Coven system being completely reformed, if not just outright dismantled, with schools like Hexside retaining tracks for organization purposes. But a multi-track curriculum would still be normalized. Basically, instead of your entire school schedule being history-related classes for the entire day, it'd be the balance of history, science, English, math, and extracurriculars that we're used to. For the sigils themselves, I kinda wouldn't be surprised if the Collector was able to make them disappear at the snap of his fingers, but Belos presumably made them with technology, so it could be something Alador helps get rid of. I definitely think all the rogue witches will be unpetrified by the Collector though. The Conformatorium is not going to continue to exist in its current form, but I could see it being transformed into a prison that actively helps reform convicts on the Isles. Like Odalia. In place of Belos as monarch, I could easily see Ida, Lilith, Rain, Darius, Everwolf, and other characters forming some sort of council to govern the Isles, embracing independence and freedom. I just think that'd be a really sweet place for a bulk of these characters to end up, especially Ida. Or maybe King will become the actual king of the Isles, as wild as that sounds. I like the council idea better though. Alternatively, for Ida and Lilith, I could see them becoming teachers at Hexside, teaching glyph magic in particular, as I speculated way back at the beginning of Season 2. Ultimately, this would be closer to the period we saw in Elsewhere and Elsewhen, what Belos referred to as the Savage Ages, though that clearly wasn't the case. But this time there'd be some rules and regulation to make sure no one takes advantage of their magic with bad intentions, and to ensure another Belos never happens again. Last but not least, I want to talk about Luz's future and where she'll end up at the end of the series. The biggest reason why I think a time skip will be the final scene of the series is because a big part of the Owl House has been Luz's journey of self-discovery and figuring out what she wants to do with her future. Thing is, I'm not sure if Luz would pursue a career path on Earth or the Boiling Isles. On one hand, I can see Luz really honing her drawing skills and becoming a professional artist, creating art based off her adventures in the Demon Realm, similar to where Marcy Wu ended up as an adult in Amphibia. maybe even creating her own hit series on the level of Good Witch Azora. But I could easily see Luz taking after her mother, becoming a veterinarian and working with animals. On the other hand, I could also see Luz growing up to become a glyph teacher at Hexside. After all, she was the one to teach Ida and Lilith, but maybe she could help out the Boiling Isles in a different way, helping bridge the gap between witches and humans as a profession, similar to Steven Universe in Future. I do like this trend in modern animation where we get to see what the main characters end up doing for a living, at least for a portion of their life. Amphibia, Steven, Craig, it's important to have the audience consider their own future, and I think seeing a character they're meant to relate to figure out a job that suits their personality is the best way to go about that. It'll have been a spectacular 3 years with the Owl House when it comes to an end next year. I truly can't wait to see what these remaining 2 specials have in store, and regardless of any parallels it has to other media, I know this ending will still manage to be its own unique thing. But as always, these are just my thoughts, and I'd love to hear yours. What do you think? How do you think the Owl House will end? Do you agree that there will still be a link between these 2 worlds, or is there trouble in paradise? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And keep the conversation going by following us at AwestruckVox and at Roundtable Vids on Instagram and Twitter. Check out Toondrip for some dope Owl House inspired merch. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. See ya!